Derita, derita, derita. Stop, stop, stop. Okay, okay. Hop, 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 hop. No le move. Asparagus.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Stephanie and welcome back to my channel. So in the video today, I want to talk about the no-nos or the mistakes that I made in my surgical rotation, and hopefully this helps you guys out for those of you who are about to start your surgery rotation or are just interested in surgery and PA school, etc. I hope this video helps you guys out so you guys don't make the same mistakes I made. So I just finished my surgery rotation like about 3 days ago. As you can tell, I'm in my winter break. The Christmas tree in the background, and I'm at home visiting my husband. Thankfully, after it's been long since September, so it's December now, so it's been a long time, so I'm really happy I'm spending time with him now. So my surgery rotation, I think out of all the rotations the reason why is because it's really important, specifically when you're in the operating room, that you are scrubbed appropriately and you make sure that you do not contaminate anything. For those of you who have worked in the OR 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 technicians, I mean, you can probably agree with this. And sometimes as students, I could say myself, and I know medical students that were with me also, we tended to contaminate everything we were touching because I didn't know how to maneuver myself in the OR or what was considered septic or not. And in PA school, we had like 2 days where they taught us how to scrub appropriately, and whether it was how to wash your hands appropriately, how to maneuver in the OR, how to gown yourself, and how to put your gloves on appropriately, etc. But I had taken this class, I think it was like in June, and I started my rotation for surgery in around mid-November, so I didn't remember. And part of this is my fault also because I didn't brush up on the information on how to scrub before. And so I really recommend that if you are not very comfortable with scrubbing or how to behave in general in the OR, to watch YouTube videos. There's really good YouTube videos from OR technicians that make these videos, YouTube videos, and they show you how to scrub properly, how to behave in the OR, how to put on your gloves properly, etc. So I make sure I watch these videos over and over again because you are going to get chewed out, guys, if you do not know how to behave properly. And they have every right to chew you out because you have a patient there and you have to maintain the area septic, clean, make sure that you do not contaminate the patient or contaminate the utensils that are going to be used on the patient or just in general anywhere around the patient. So that's why it's really important you know how to behave yourself. And so the mistakes that I made first off is that I didn't know how to gown properly or how to wash my hands properly when it came down to the OR, and that's a really important step. So the first thing you do when you go into the hospital, you change, of course, you change into the scrubs required by the hospital, and you make sure that all your hair is covered, so you put it in a head gown, and you also make sure that your shoes are covered with in the OR they would call them booties. I don't know what the proper term is, shoe covers. You make sure that you cover your shoes, and the reason why is that when you go into the OR, there'll be certain procedures where there's a lot of blood everywhere, and so if you don't have your booties and there's blood all over the floor, then your shoes are going to be all over the blood, and you're going to get your shoes covered with blood. So if you have those booties, you can just remove that off and then put new ones for the next procedure. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you have your booties. You also have your face mask and also your face shield, depending on what procedure they're doing. For example, my doctor did a lot of mastectomies, and mastectomies sometimes were very bloody, so there was blood everywhere. And if you did not have a face gown, then you're gonna have blood all over your face. So that's why it's really important that you have, of course, you're gonna have your face gown, and then you're gonna have also, it's like a plastic that goes on top that covers just your face from blood splattering. And another thing, making sure that you are aware that everything around you is sterile. So the mistakes that I made, of course, like I said, was not gowning appropriately. When I came in, sometimes some of the technicians are very busy, or sometimes they just won't help you. They won't help you to gown. There would be certain technicians that will grab your gown and they'll have it ready and just put your hands in, and then they'll have your gloves ready and put your hands into the gloves and they'll tie you. But sometimes there'll be some technicians that won't. So you have to make sure that you go in and you grab your gown carefully through the cuffs, you put it on, and without taking your hands out of the gown, with your hands in the gown, you're gonna make sure that you grab your gloves and you put them on appropriately, and then you'll have somebody turn you around. They call it dancing because they literally like turn you around, and then they'll tie you from the back, so make sure that you are sterile. So then you walk like this and you are careful not to touch anything. The mistakes I made is that sometimes, more like most of the times, my doctor would be late for the surgery. So there would be times where it would be like 15 minutes just standing there waiting for him. And so I made the mistake of sometimes sitting on stools. And when I would sit on the stool would be so low that my gown would touch the floor and I would be contaminated. And so I would have to change my entire gown because I was already contaminated. Another mistake that I made is that during the procedures, you'll have lights. There'll be 2 lights, and sometimes the doctors will ask you to move the lights for you. Can you move the light so I can see where I'm performing the procedure a little bit better because I can't see? Well, usually they'll put covers for the extending part of the light, which is septic, but everything else around the light, like the handles on the sides, they are not septic. And so there would be times where I would just be so into the procedure I would forget, and I would go, instead of touching the elongated part of the light, which was septic and had a cover, I would go and touch the handle, which was not septic, and I would move it. And nope, once I touched that, I was already contaminated, so I had to back away and change. And it's the most embarrassing and frustrating thing, guys, when you become contaminated. And sometimes, there'll be certain OR techs that will chew you out, and like I said, they have every right to chew you out, and if they're chewing you out, that makes you even more nervous. So in situations like that, you have to take off your gown, go out, do the whole procedure again, washing your hands, going back in, and gowning all over again. Other mistakes that I made were just moving around and just touching things that were just contaminated. In addition, you want to make sure that you ask your doctor if you can scrub in for every procedure, and I automatically thought that I was required to scrub in for every procedure, and sometimes I just scrubbed in, and there was just a lot of people around the patient, because sometimes you have the residents, you have the OR technicians, and on top of that you have the surgeon, and then you have the RN, so it's a lot of people. So you want to make sure that you ask the doctor, hey, can I scrub in before I go into this procedure? So that's really, really, really important, asking for their permission, and letting also the OR technicians or the RNs your name, letting them know, hey, I'm Stephanie, I'm a physician assistant student, and I'm with Dr. etc., so they can know who you are. And also making sure that you introduce yourself to everybody in the room. Residents, introducing yourself to them. This is a mistake I made all the time. I'm a very, very nervous person in general, and so I quickly had to get over this, because you are going to be working with them and they need to know your name. So it's really important that you introduce yourself to them, every single person in the room. In addition to that, if you are just observing, make sure that you place your hands on the patient. So you'll have the patient here, you can place your hands on the side of the patient and just stand there and observe, okay? Sometimes there will be procedures that are very, very long, like mastectomies, like I said. Those usually lasted, if they were double with reconstruction, they lasted 4 hours. So standing there for a long time, make sure that you're shifting your feet back and forth, because there was times where I was feeling like I was gonna pass out. And if you feel like you're gonna pass out, just walk back slowly and pass out. Obviously, you're not gonna stand there and wait until you pass out and pass out on the patient. But if you feel like you're gonna pass out, just walk slowly behind, make sure that you're out of the septic area, and then let a nurse know. But there was times where I didn't pass out. There was times where I felt like I was gonna pass out. There was times where I felt like I needed to go to the restroom and I couldn't, and it was just a really bad feeling. In situations like that, you can just let the doctor know, hey, I have to go to the restroom. Sorry. Most of the time I would try to hold it, but I think there was one time where I couldn't, and I let the doctor know. I went to the restroom, came back, and scrubbed in. So make sure that you always let the doctor know whether you can touch the patient or not, whether he allows you to retract or not. I know there was my first week, I thought I was required to do all this. I never asked for permission, and there would be a resident there with with him. So usually with mastectomies, you're required to retract usually the breast because he's trying to take all the breast tissue. And I would feel bad for the resident because they would be retracting there for 2 hours with the arm literally like this. So you get tired. So I would ask the resident, hey, is it okay if I retract? And she'd be like, yeah, that's fine. So I would be retracting, but I didn't know what I was doing. In addition, when it came to the laparoscopic surgeries, I would have the camera and handle it, but I didn't know, this was my first time handling a laparoscopic camera, so I didn't know what I was doing, and I was not placing the camera correctly for the resident to do the procedure, and it was just a mess. So just make sure you always ask permission before you do something, before you retract. And if the doctor tells you, hey, can you retract? Can you hold this for me? Then do it. Can you hold the Bobby pen, which is a pen that usually burns the skin? Do it. Can you hold the suction? Can you suction for me? Do it. So things I got to do in the OR is I got to suture. I was able to suture patients. I was able to place glue on the patients. I was able to suction. I wasn't very good at suctioning. I wasn't as attentive as the OR technicians as the residents, and so I'm still learning. But I was able to suction whether it was a smoke from the Bobby pen or it was just blood that was coming out. So these were some of the things I was able to do. So in a nutshell, make sure that you are prepared to go in the OR. Make sure you know how to behave properly in the OR to prevent contaminating yourself, contaminating other staff, how to gown properly by yourself, because like I said, sometimes there'll be certain techs that are just really busy or they just won't help you. So you have to make sure you know how to gown yourself. Make sure you know your glove size. Now, for every procedure, I was required to go and get my gown size and my glove size. You have to make sure that your gloves are tight. They're not loose. I thought it was size gloves 6.5, and when I put on the gloves, the techs would be like, that's really loose. And so I later learned that it was a 6 because it's tight. There's no loose ends anywhere. So make sure you know your glove size. Make sure you ask for permission before you go into every procedure. From the technicians and also from the doctor, whether they allow you to scrub in or just observe. Third is that you also want to ask for permission whether you can retract or you can hold the camera or do certain procedures before. Sometimes the doctors will just hand it to you or tell you if you can do it for them, but don't assume and just grab everything, because like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. Unless of course you have experience working in the OR, but I didn't at all. It was my first time in the OR. And just make sure that you're also aware of your surroundings. Now in the OR, also in surgery, there'll be times where we had surgeries back to back, and there will be times where I didn't eat. I ended up just taking meal replacement drinks, which are called Huels. One of the residents that I was with actually recommended it to me, and I'll place the link on the bottom if you're interested. They would fill me up, so I would just drink these in between surgeries because sometimes I didn't have time to eat, and I would be in surgery sometimes from 6:30 a.m. till midnight, depending on how many procedures he had. So like I said, the mastectomies usually lasted around 4 hours with reconstruction, and if he had several of those during the day, it was a very, very long day, and you're staying on your feet all the time. Compression stockings, I also recommend compression socks, especially for women who want to make sure they don't have any varicose veins on their legs, have nice legs, and also want to make sure that their feet don't hurt, because your feet are going to hurt. And on top of that, also make sure that you have appropriate shoes for the OR, because your feet and your plantar are going to hurt a lot. So you want to make sure you have those comfortable cushion shoes. Okay, and then of course once you get home, shower, because you know, as you've just been in the OR, sometimes it's just really gross. Especially, I would help the nurses for certain patients, like they were coming in for hernia repairs, and if they were in the pelvic area, you know, you had to shave the pelvic area, and there would just be hair everywhere, and it was just really, really, really gross. So make sure that you shower every day before you get home. But yeah, these are just some of the tips for surgery rotation, how to behave in the OR, and just some of the mistakes that I made, basically contaminating myself all the time. So just make sure that you are aware of your surroundings, okay? Alright guys, thanks for watching my videos, and if you guys have any questions for me, any comments or any feedback, make sure you comment below, or just a question for me in general, you can send me an email and I will respond as soon as I can, okay? Alright guys, thanks for watching my videos, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!